Hi everyone. If you are at the stage where you have read, evaluated, and organized, and even synthesized the literature which is relevant to your research problem, you are probably at the stage when you have to start writing the section or the chapter that describes the literature you have examined. As a researcher myself, I have written many literature reviews and even read many. I'm sure you guys have also read many literature reviews as part of PhD's thesis or master's thesis or dissertation. So in today's video, I'm going to provide you with some useful tips on how to write a clear and cohesive literature review as part of your research. Let's get started. The first tip I would give you is that make sure you're very clear in your thinking before you actually start writing. You must know precisely what you are trying to achieve through the literature review. The review of the related literature section is a discussion of the research studies and other scholarly writings that bear directly on your own research effort. So you might think of your written review of related literature as a description for one or more of your peers about what other people have written in relation to what you plan to do. Viewing the literature section in this way can help both you and your readers see your own effort within the context of the efforts of researchers who have preceded you. Make sure you also plan or develop a plan for the overall structure of your review. This has worked very well for me. Writing a good review of the related literature requires advanced planning. Before beginning to write the review of the related literature, create an outline of the topics you intend to address and the points you intend to make. So maybe make a list of headings and subheadings. A careful consideration of your problem and subproblems should suggest relevant areas for discussion and the order in which they should be addressed. Begin your discussion of the related literature from a comprehensive perspective, like a inverted pyramid that you see on your screen. Broad end first. Then as you proceed, you can deal with more specific ideas and studies and focus in more and more on your own particular problem. Throughout your discussion of the related literature, your organizational scheme should be crystal clear to both you and your readers. For example, start off with an advanced organizer, an overview of the topics you will discuss and the sequence in which you will discuss them. Use headings, subheadings throughout your literature review to alert the readers to the particular topics that each section will address. Early in the review, you will probably want to consider the classic works, those groundbreaking studies that have paved the way for much of the research about the topic. Such studies will give an overall historical perspective and also provide a context for your own efforts. Keep your readers constantly aware of how the literature you are discussing has relevance to your own project. Point out precisely what the relationship is. Remember that you are writing a review of the related literature. Literature reviews should never be a chain of isolated summaries of other people's research and writing. When writing in this manner, no attempt is made to demonstrate the relatedness of the literature to the problem being researched. If you can't identify a relationship, you would do well to consider whether you should include the source at all or not. For example, if you are reading on the change in the diet patterns as men get older, but your research focus is actually whether diet has any relationship or changing diet has any relationship to hair fall in men. So eventually, whatever you read about change in the diet patterns as men get older should be related to the problem that you're investigating, which is, does changing diet lead to hair fall in men? Right? Something like that. Make sure you provide transitional phrases, sentences, paragraphs that help your readers follow your train of thought. Remember, you are the expert here, not the readers. So the readers might get lost in if you provide too much information. If one idea, paragraph, or section leads logically to the next, then say so. Furthermore, give readers some sort of signal when you change the course of your discussion in the middle of a section. Alright, providing mental pictures of objects or or suddenly or including tables or maybe figures that will might help make the transition more smoother, or a theoretical discussion of imagery. Alright, so this will help as well. Know the difference between describing the literature and plagiarizing it. Many researchers don't fully understand the various forms that plagiarism might take. Plagiarism involves presenting another person's work as your own, or insufficiently acknowledging and identifying the sources from which work has been drawn while writing. Reproducing another person's work word for word without crediting that person constitutes plagiarism as well. But so too is making small, insignificant changes in someone else's word a form of plagiarism. My suggestion would be make sure you discuss with your local librarian, maybe attend a workshop, or discuss with your supervisors and advisors on how to avoid plagiarism in your work and what constitutes as plagiarism. Remember, plagiarism is also insufficiently acknowledging and identifying the sources from which one has drawn while writing. In writing the literature review, you must always credit those people whose ideas you are using or whose research results you are reporting. Such is true regardless of whether you are making use of printed materials, internet sources, conference presentations, or informal conversations while others in your field. Omitting this step will lead your readers to infer that certain ideas are your own rather than of someone else. Citing other sources also means citing them correctly. Making major errors in citations, even if you do so unintentionally, is considered plagiarism. Alright? So sloppiness in record keeping is no excuse. The specific way in which you give credit to scholars whose ideas you are presenting will depend, of course, on your particular discipline. So make sure you are aware of the style of referencing in your discipline is followed and then sticking to it. Minimize the use of direct quotation from other people's work. Sometimes you may decide that someone else's words captures an idea so well or so vividly that you want to present it word for word. Now, occasionally, two certain excerpts provide examples of a point you are trying to make about the literature in general. You can legitimately use other people's work if you present them within quotation marks for a phrase or sentence, or in an indented passage for a longer quotation. All too, however, in literature reviews, use of quotation marks should be avoided as much as possible. You use quotations only when you have a very good reason. For example, when the specific words that an author uses are as important as the ideas that the author presents. Consistently using other people's words, even when you give those people credit, can convey the impression that you aren't willing to take the time to write a clear, cohesive literature review of your own. Current law allows what is known as fair use of a quotation, but some publishers have their own rule of thumb. So be aware of it. Perhaps the most important question any researcher can ask and should continue to ask throughout the research process is what it all means. In a thesis or discussion, every discussion of related literature should end with a brief summary section in which you gather up all that has been said and describe its importance in terms of the research problem you are investigating. So some people call it a heading of summary. Sometimes it is required, sometimes it is not. But sometimes some people give it a summary in the discussion section. So I don't know what kind of style of writing you're going to adopt, but just summarizing everything in either the discussion section or the summary section is a good idea for the readers to be able to read it and decide whether they will read your paper further or not. Remember that your first draft will always certainly not be your last draft. Imperfections in the first draft are going to be unavoidable. You should write a first draft even before you have completely finished your literature review. Writing a first incomplete draft can help you identify parts of the literature that are still unclear to you and places where you may need additional information or citations. One strategy authors use as they write a literature review is to leave blanks for information that they realize they still need to understand more about. Even when you have obtained all the information you need for a complete review, you will typically not be able to express your thoughts with total clarity the first time around. Write the review, print it out, let it sit for a few days, then reread it with a critical eye, looking for places where you have been maybe ambiguous, incomplete, or even self-contradictory. Final advice, and the most important advice, is ask others for advice and feedback. Talk with others about what you have found, use others to read an early draft, and get ideas about additional avenues you should explore. Use email to contact people who have an interest in this area of study. Explain where you are working and what you are working on. Send them a copy of what you have written and ask for their feedback and suggestion. You'll be amazed at how helpful and supportive people can be when you tell them you have read their work and would appreciate their opinion. So thank you for watching today's video, guys. I like to keep my videos as short as possible, but I will see you soon with my next video. Good luck with your research and bye for now.